This is a video journey into the creative world of William Giles. Teacher, philosopher, and master still photographer. It is through him that we may learn new ways of seeing that will enrich our world and enhance our visual lives.
When I came to California 13 years ago, and I heard rumors of this man named William Giles who lived in Carmel Valley, who was a bit of a hermit, who was a bit of a shaman, who was a bit of all those things, who had studied with Minor White, and who was a huge influence on me.
Thank you for coming to the Ansel Adams Gallery tonight for the photographer series. We are very privileged this evening to have with us Will Giles. Just by way of introduction, my name is Matthew Adams. I'm the president of the Ansel Adams Gallery, the grandson of Ansel Adams. And it's my pleasure to introduce tonight William Giles. William came of age, so to speak, in photography in Rochester in the 50s. For those of you who are not aware, Rochester was one of the centers for photographic art, fine photographic art in the country. Certainly is today still. But there was quite a lot going on at the time, and we're looking forward to hearing from Will what exactly that was about. Will studied with Minor White, unfortunately one of the least known of the luminaries of creative photography.
Let me tell you, he started the hub in a way on the West Coast. Aperture came out in '52. It started on the West Coast, not the East. It was interesting that at the time the hub of photography in the early '50s was probably San Francisco and right down here, right here. And so he was the Haydn of the age. And it was really interesting seeing Minor and Ansel talking to each other, because one would talk, what f-stop, da-da-da-da, and paper and chemistry and what lenses and how to get this and that for this particular effect and that. And Minor would be talking metaphysically what the blacks were really meaning and the cloud in that particular place. And isn't it interesting that you're repeating that particular form, Ansel, a number of times? And it was like, it's like a ping pong game. What transpired between Ansel Adams and Minor was a sensibility of light, which Minor gave to me, and I pass on to all the students that I have. Painting with light is probably every photographer's secret dream. It's not a thing that often you're conscious of, but how the light that's around an object affects everything. It's the light that really creates the images. Minor was a frustrated Stieglitz. Now, Stieglitz was a person who totally affected our photography, because he said it's not just the object that you're photographing, but the feeling that you have above the photograph. That when presented, the subject matter isn't all that important anymore. It's the feeling behind of what you're using. It's a metaphor. It's as if it's a state of your inner being, inner growth. Whatever that happenstance happens, that makes you take a picture, besides the snapshot type thing. When you really start meditating on what you're looking at and becoming part of that object, magic can happen. Absolute magic can happen. Now, photography can be those footprints, of where you've been, and you can then slowly assemble from the past into future manifestations, depending on your metaphysics. I like to go back to the cave age, where photography is projected shadows of your own making. And then it opens up a whole other panorama of landscapings, both internal and external, fused as one. This was what Minor's teaching was about. talking about combining East and West, that Miner took into his teaching and taught. One was heavy-duty meditation. I mean, you would get up, he felt that the way that you communicate with photographs is with silence. Taking pictures is such a miracle. It's such a wondrous aspect of finding out how you visually perceive something. And I think what Miner was into was all the different stages of consciousness that changes your way of seeing something. One of the first books that came out in photography was Discovering Yourself in Photography. What do you mean discovering yourself through photography? Well, you have to look at these little images that you give life to. You have to breathe life into it so they come back to you and they start talking to you. Miner used to make these sequences. I mean, the first time I met him, he was at the George Eastman House putting sequence 13 together. And it was, just about kind of the size with some walls in front. And he had photographs all on brown paper. And he was feeling that the sequencing of things that, as you see them, builds a certain message that a viewer, it becomes like a movie of stills. And you can start seeing them as a progression of time. And that just fascinated the heck out of me, because then they become your visual diary. And I got involved with Zen. I got involved with the Gurdjieff movement, because they're all helpful to try to make you conscious of who and what you are while you're in the act of photographing something, seeing something, seeing what. After I'd finished the Mother of Pearls, he was going to write the foreword, and I wrote, called you when you were in the hospital. He had just had a heart attack. Have been pushing out all the positive energy I know in your direction. These photographs were taken out of the depths of nature's dark womb. I owe a lot of it to the faith and the confidence you had in me to go for the light. Ever since I was a child, I had always felt that light came out of the object of my perception. So I photograph from that child's heart that sees from a place of quiet within, and catch the first shimmers of creation itself before it forms a form. I have always felt the outer world is but a reflection of an inner light that endows each object with its own suns, its own moons, its own stars. The walls, I feel, in terms of what Stieglitz's concept of a wall is, that it's a wall has spirit, and it's not just putting things up on a wall, but how you go about putting different things on the wall. So there's a sequencing, there's a dance, there's a movement going from one picture to another picture to a picture. That dance is the photographer himself. Photographs don't just happen. They start in the heart and the mind, and reading and talking to different people about different things. That's what art is all about. I composed this wall, and I put the kiva right in the center, because what I was hoping and wanting to do in Native American way is that you gather people together in a circle. And the quotation that's below the kiva is that it's not just a picture of the kiva, but each thing stands as a symbol for other things that you're taking a picture of. There's a certain stillness that I think has to happen in terms of grounding yourself, like the kiva can, so that you can see, and you have to be very still inside, because otherwise your eye just bounces left, right, sideways. And the idea of a remarkable, what I put on the larger scenario here is that great photographs, memorable photographs, they start in the heart and the mind. And then we project that onto something, and we hopefully can become part and become one with what you're looking at, so that the object out there gives you insight into yourself, ultimately, so that you can expand. So how to make a composition so that as a person goes along here and comes to the kiva, reads where the elements came from, what different parts of our faculties got made from the elements. And Gurdjieff would say, have a 3.5 second intake, like as if you saw something as if for the first time. You all of a sudden become like a 3-year-old. Children don't blink. You can tell when someone is really looking at something because they don't blink. It's hard to talk about vision without talking about how the mind works, because it's not just one or the other. It's not technical side versus the poetic side. It's both. It's both and there's not just 0 and 1. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 between those two polarities. It isn't like two opposites having to clash. It's like two opposites being able to move together around a center point. And it's that center point that I think creates that synthesis. World. This is a picture I took about 1975, South Dakota. I was visiting an Indian friend of mine, Pine Ridge, and I'd always been fascinated by the forms that are right there. You just have to get quiet again, and all of a sudden there's this kind of big monstrous thing, but that was fine, but I needed a cloud. I needed a cloud to come along to, so there's this frontal piece, but then in the distance there's another one. And I like my photographs to ricochet your eye into infinity. And I also, the more you do this, the more you see a particular idea in your mind, and then want to bring that particular idea form into fruition. And this, looked like a little puppy, kind of popping into the sky, and it's all very real. This is how it was. It's through a red filter, so that any of the blue that you have, it stops it, so that on your negative it's clear film. And when you put it into the enlarger and make a picture of it, the light just goes right through that film plus the fog of the film and makes it black. And I rather like doing that because it brings the clouds out. It gives the form. If this was without the filter, you wouldn't even see this little puppy dog. And then nice when you have the nature talking to each other. And what I always get a real pleasure from is that once you see that they're kind of talking to each other, there's a certain excitement that comes with the things outside of you because they feel that someone is appreciating them. Who doesn't like appreciation? Like, God, it's such a neat hill. Well, thank you. It's marvelous when there's an inner and outer kind of contemplation of vision, that as you go in and as you go out, you're not sure if you're going out or going in anymore, and that's the time to take the picture. So this is Badlands, and it's one of my stronger images, I think.
It's very spiritual, and I think what's important is the things that, the shadings, the textures, and leaving you to fill in for yourself whatever it is that he's creating in that photograph. It leaves room to feel that magic and that spirituality.
The spirit world chooses you in a way, you don't choose it. All you can do is be as open as you can, silent as you can, to have those forces come into you, into your mind, so that you can see it outward. Seeing is really is an exterior type of seeing. You know, you have the Byzantine time was you see according to the intensity of the light inside of your mind through your eye to illuminate what you're seeing. And that's a very good one for a photographer, because otherwise you're seeing flat things and you're making object identity. It's like a rubber stamp on things, and you're not really seeing. You might be looking, but not seeing. This was water, air under ice, and you know, Miner was just over to one side, and I said, "Miner, shh, don't move." and you had to balance yourself, you know, a little bit this way, it would change. I don't know if those of you that have experienced water and ice. This is neat. You can just go landscapes within landscapes within landscapes. I see these little ladies. This is Stony Brook. Miner in this intense workshop of Herbie Hamilton, David Plowden, Gene Saunders. We photograph probably pretty much every other day, most of the time in total silence. My highlight of teaching, I think, was taking 24 students to Crete. But I couldn't help but feel Miner's footsteps there, you know, the monastic one in a way. This is a monastery in the southern part of Crete, Cloudon Tower. Then I came to the West Coast. Water splash around a rock. Long developing time, so you expand all the tones. Can't help but see a face there. Miner's face, maybe. Call this Plato's Cave. I like it when you can just drop out everything. See how things look when you drop out everything. You know, it's like squinting your eyes and just seeing the highlights. Think, oh, that'll make an interesting picture. What are you doing? It's like looking at these clouds going by, and you have to peer at them slightly different. Oh, there's a horse. Taking pictures is such a miracle. It's such a wondrous aspect of finding out how you visually perceive something. And I think what Miner was into was all the different stages of consciousness that changes your way of seeing something. He did his whole lifetime trying to do that, trying to show people that maybe by touching each other or spending half an hour looking at something. I mean, you would try Ouspensky and Esalen, whatever would work. Anything that changes your perception of something is going to be to your benefit and growth. And this is just down the road, along Route 1. I somehow felt Miner's feet there. I said, oh, thank you. All of a sudden the clouds came out and said, huh. And the last one I took in Santa Cruz. This is after all day waiting for this one to appear. Had become the waves, become the water. They finally came into threes. Usually water doesn't have any sense. You just have to wait and take one and oh, you can do better than that. And you start talking to, come on, you look. Then you see something, come on, you can do it, yeah, come on, no. And I was just talking away and looked up. Oh, there was a bank of kids, about 20 of them. This is something about the Gurdjieff, the training that I don't, when you concentrate on something and you totally focus on something, let me tell you, you create your own time and space. You really do. You think, holy Moses, we've been at this for 5 hours. It's marvelous when your inner nature and your outer nature confuse as one. That's the greatest gift a teacher can give to another. So I owe you a lot, Minor. Thank you. See, I think the image starts in the recesses of your own mind, and you project that particular internal image onto what you're seeing. Sometimes you need a seagull, sometimes you need a cloud, sometimes, and if you're in union, if you're in communion, if you're at one-ment with nature, you just have to be patient. It's like fishing. You get one, now the waves are different. The waves are so different. Each wave is different. Just like people, they're all different. Composing a picture is like making a story, all in one picture. And sometimes slowing down to delineate what you see with a pencil or with the pen helps you see better. Photography is graphing light, and we shouldn't forget the other arts. We should be able to paint and be able to draw and see again the interrelationships of all the different medias. Maybe you can say a song too, a little poem as you're looking at something, or a prayer. They're all part of nature. We're part of nature. We should celebrate that. Never negate that we're part of nature. And photography is nice because it integrates both the left side of numbers, left side of our brain, and our right side of seeing things spatially, and poetically, mythically. Being able to see the everyday mythos of science. That's the goal. I mean, the beauty of photography is that what you're seeing out becomes part of your seeing inward, and the two mesh. The feeling that you have inside for the object outside, and the object outside sensing you looking at it, that you're appreciating what's there. And there's a white side and a dark side. The white side's waiting for the light. When the light comes, then I turn it over and it's the black side. The black side's ready to go into the dark one, get processed. We'll do a 30th here. Do a 30th at 22. So we're ready for the shot now. Set the. We got to take the. It's back out. Okay, it's a short exposure. There, got it. But you can see the difference between this kind of orientation of focus versus what's happening now is in the digital world, where you have the picture frame set off, so you're kind of squinting, trying to take it'll take a lot of training to get a good, really a good individual picture that way, because all this is removed. Compared to making a mark, which is the first form of expression is the mark, the stone, and then you turn it into something much more flexible, like pigment. And then pigment you can make you don't need to make a mark anymore. Now it's pigment. And in terms of photography, it was graphite, and graphite goes into silver. Mm-hmm. The first book that came out in photography was The Pencil of Nature, which I thought was really interesting, delineating nature with the pencil. Now, boom, you can take it with the silver. Now we have the pixel, which is we don't really have a language for the electronic vision yet, I don't think. We hardly have a language for the silver vision. This is, the camera sees things very differently. It's upside down. And then you can compose. In this particular one, I don't particularly like lines on it, because I like the objects that I'm looking at, even if it is upside down, emitting their own forces and interacting with each other. But this is a totally, well, we got a little bit of sky here, but this is a totally urban, everything you see outside. This is outside my window. My favorite pictures when nature says, "Oh, someone's looking at us. Shall we?" It peaks. There's an energy like the Byzantine period. All you could see is the energy that's inside of you broadcast out into a world of darkness. So all you saw was the beam of your mental energy and heart energy inside, beaming through your eye out like a searchlight. And their paintings kind of show that. So in a way, this is a return to that, the way of going back to pick up the best of the past into the future. And then we have our work that acts as a compendium of a person's journey. Bringing up a print in the darkroom, it still has that original, like, that 3.5 second, look at it, I never quite saw it. Sometimes you need a photograph to really understand something. Stiglitz used to say this, I don't understand anything unless I take a picture of it. And he spent a lifetime taking a picture of George O'Keeffe. Darkroom work is very magical, which we're not doing anymore because everything is outside. In fact, you're not even seeing through something with the digit cameras. It's off to one side. And then there's no darkroom work where you have the time to going into, the darkness of your own soul, in a way, the darkness of where the image came from. Because without darkness, there's no light. You need darkness, and you don't need to be scared of darkness. Darkness is your friend in order to be able to see light better. And without light, there's no hope. You know, all the negatives going back into, I mean, the first ones in 1951, 52. I mean, this is like your journal. I keep journals too, but you know, it's nice having photographs of where you've been, what you've done. And sometimes I go back to some early ones, and what I thought was a really dumb picture back then, I thought, holy moly, look at that! One of my teachers in Navajo, he loved going through my 4x5 contacts, and he would go through them pretty fast. And he came to the screech owl and said, well, what happened? What happened to you here? And I said, well, there was something that came out of thing and it hit a truck. And he said, no. What happened to you? Mm-hmm. You know, Indians have a way of wanting, they don't want all the description. They want to go right for your main feeling. I said, well, I thought I died. I just saw like the light, and I couldn't get up. My hands were all wet. And said, well, don't you know about the owl? And I said, no, what about the? I said, oh, you white folks, you're going to teach you everything. The owl is a mythic bird. It's a very, very wise bird because it knows where it came from. It knows where it goes back to. And it's respected. It's a very wise bird. All the birds know that. It can see during the dark. It can see during the daylight. It can turn its head everywhere. But if you're close to it, if you're feeling the bird, you can get sucked out with that one. Then it can take you. And he said, but you're still here. You're still here. How come you're still here? I guess you're supposed to take more pictures. Thank you, little Joe. I'll never forget that. It's memorable. Because pictures aren't always just pictures. Sometimes you need someone to make a comment on it. Oh, yeah. That makes you re-see it again. Sometimes it's very clear why I'm doing what I'm doing, you know, but often I discover really what I'm doing when I'm in the darkroom, and then sometimes not until years later. Because Miner was way out there. I mean, for technology, and he was trying to do the technology, the internal mechanism technology, and trying to fuse it. He had, let's see, given a gallery, dig this, given a gallery, then he had aperture going on, so the gallery, his shows, let's see, Light 7, where he tried to define the different definitions, and being without clothes, you know, the taboo of anyone without clothes. Well, he wanted to punch through that one. Octave of prayer, or prayer of octave? Octave of prayer. And these are large shows, 120, 30, almost 200 photographs. And then of those, he would do little write-ups, and he had his aperture. And the last one, which is, I think, very interesting, was celebrations. He had a heart attack. He knew, okay, let's go out. Either you go out or you go out with a bang. He decided to go out with a bang. And they gave him an honorary literary thing at the San Francisco Art Institute, thanks, the day he died, which I thought was kind of interesting. He died at 68, two heart attacks. His last words, what's the question? No, really? I think photographs were Miner's children. He didn't have a family as such, so his students and his work and his writing was his life. And he left a very, very sacred path. I mean, just very diligent in what he did. If you're going to be pursuing your bliss, get it get it so that you have some kind of markings of where it's going, because that can be a benefit to everyone. Especially with Minor, who just poured out love. I mean, he didn't know how to do anything else.
What I see happening tonight is really touching. William Giles is my dad, and I love the man. I really love the man. What I see happening here tonight is not a wall of pictures, but it's a wall of it's a story. It's the life of a man. It's the life of an artist, which is not an easy life. As I look at these pictures, I see different times in his life. I look at this picture and I remember when I was learning how to walk in Crete. I look at these pictures and I remember the tar landscapes when he was doing in LA, and what a strange experience that was. I remember all these pictures as the story of a man and what he's experienced in life. And it's the artist that makes the art. And I hope that's not forgotten. This is a beautiful tribute to his life, and I hope that something comes from all this, more than just fluff, but something real that people understand and see what he's committed his life to and are able to appreciate it.
I came from the West Coast, from the East Coast as well, and eventually our paths crossed, and I was able to meet Will and get to know him more, and eventually do some work for him, in terms of spotting and matting and mounting and things like that. But he really became a bit of a mentor figure for me in terms of someone who was on the same plane that I was, in terms of where my photography was going and what I wanted to interpret. And he was always very encouraging. And the thing that struck me most about Will, even now, is that his tremendous honesty about who he is and about how he approaches his work. And he's not afraid to be himself. And I think all artists need to take a lesson from Will in that regard. And be courageous, and then put yourself out there, and be free to talk about the spirit that moves you, not so much the material or the subject that may move you.
It helps to feel that there's a larger creation of things outside of yourself that you can become in tune with, become beholden to, be a witness of. I mean, as a photographer, we're really witnesses of how we go about seeing something.
It's about the light that we photograph the most. And Will is really married to light and spirit. And I can really relate to that, and it's been a huge inspiration for me to be involved with Will as a friend and as a mentor figure in a lot of ways. And to be able to share this exhibition with him is it's really kind of a pinnacle in my mind, because it's two very similar energies working with one another. It's the light emanating from his photographs, the light that emanates from my photographs is very similar in the way we see things, and it's nice to be grouped in a way that's where there are two photographers that it's like kind of opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of their career and their generation, and it's nice to bring the two together enter a situation like this that's most enjoyable and really very gratifying.
All the different colors of light, the violet, indigo, blue, green, orange, red, and the sense of wind is touch. It's like the little fingertips going up to the sky to touch the outer limits of the sky, and you can see it. There's the wind has its own language. We just have forgotten how to read it, how to read clouds. So we want to bring the spirit world that's way out there in terms of all the people who've died and all the people who are about to also come in. Many more people than just this one planet. And how to bring the best of what's been happening down into a focus point right in the center. And that's the fire, that's the heart. So that we learn to think with our hearts No, not just with our heads.
Control the perspective by tilting it back, making this log move more than it actually does in reality. And by throwing the background just a little bit out of focus and keeping the log really sharp, I was able to.
It has a wonderful quality of sometimes complexity and simplicity. There's a stillness in it. I'm not sure why. I like the idea that Ansel often said that the photograph speaks for itself.
In the beginning light, you can start with this and go all the way over, or end with it, and then it opens up into, Patrick's show. And moon mud is a reflection of the full moon. For a long period of time, I was photographing the reflectance of moon on things, and this is mud. And this little point here is the moon, and this must have been about a 10-12 minute exposure, and you can kind of see the moon kind of move, from one little place to a little place. The photograph is kind of beautiful because you can, you can see things really down to a little microscopic, like almost that your eye becomes like a microscope, or you ratchet it out and becomes like a telescope. And I like it when you're not sure if you're somewhat close to it or away from it. You don't know the sense of scale. It opens up the mystery, it opens up the poetry, it opens up space.
This song is dedicated to Will and all his black and white paintings, pictures, his love for photography, and a good friend. This is a Cocopelli song, which comes from the South.
All of my photographs are really about internal space, of how you're feeling internally when you're looking at something outside of you, and the two mesh each other. They greet each other, and then that greeting within that little triangle you can show, to other people, and they can see how you saw something, and hopefully that opens up other people to appreciating nature as really our true teacher. good photograph, they don't come easy. You have to do a lot of internal searching and go out many times and take a lot of pictures. But I think the hope is to make them into a symbol, so that when a person sees it, it touches a person's heart. There's enough of a symbology, a feeling symbology, that resonates with another person. Like, this kind of form resonates with everyone because it's our body. It's how we work internally, and we just simply recognize what's outside of us as inside, and then boom, that creates a moment of recognition, of finding the internal image that's inside of us that corresponds with the external image, and again creating that Gurdjieff, moment of awakening, moment of enlightenment, you might call it, and they don't happen too often. And it's kind of interesting. I took it in Oregon, and then it went to Chicago, and it went like this. And then I had a show down in Florida, and they put it this way, and one in New Orleans at the Joshua Pillay Gallery, and he put it up this way. Which has been very confusing because I have to ask people when they buy it which way they want it. But this is how I saw it.
Yeah.
But an interesting, there was a nun that liked it this way. Because, well, this is how she saw it, but she said, "Oh, this reminds me of Sister somebody," and the calla lily became like a cape. I mean, art is so great because it can open up the recesses of your own being, and that kind of mystery will always keep you young. Always. I mean, in fact, it'll get richer as you get older. There's something so beautiful about being a photographer, because you're like a small child looking at the world all the time and go, "Oh, look!" And it doesn't matter how old you are. There's something outside that piques. I mean, I've been doing this now for 53 years. It's been over 50 years I've been doing this nonsense. Can you imagine? And it's still a mystery.